8 months after 4 members of the Afzal family were struck and killed in what police describe as a hate-motivated attack in London, the Ontario NDP introduced an anti-Islamophobia bill in the legislature today. The Our London Family Act promises to challenge Islamophobia through education and human rights reform and establish safe zones around religious institutions. For more on this, we welcome back to CP24 tonight Ontario's NDP Leader Andrea Horwath, Chief Executive Officer of the National Council of Canadian Muslims, Mustafa Farooq, and Afzal family spokesperson Saboor. Thanks to all of you. Ms. Horwath, how would this bill establish a provincial review of hate crimes and hate-motivated incidents in Ontario, and explain why that's really important in addressing Islamophobia?
Well, one of the things that we heard loudly and clearly, and first of all, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to mark this really momentous day when the act has been tabled, and I'm happy to be here with Mustafa and Mr. Khan to talk about exactly what's been happening. But we know that the hate has continued. We know what happened in the summer with the Afzal family. We know that that's not the only time that we've seen this kind of violence, this kind of Islamophobic hateful attack. And so what we want to do is make sure that we hear what the community says. And what they said was, it's time to just stop talking about these things and start acting. And so we put together this legislation with the direct assistance and help of the NCCM, the National Council of Canadian Muslims, and Mustafa and his team. And it's meant to create some accountability around these kinds of hate crimes, some assurance of follow-up and of analysis to make sure that we're identifying, how we can begin to hold people to account and start to reduce the instances to get to a point where they're eliminated completely.
Okay, it's time to act, you say. Mustafa, do Muslims here in Ontario, do you feel safe? And when we say it's time to act, what kind of action do you think we need to see happen right now?
Well, I think that's an important, critical question. What I'll say are two things. Number one, as the CEO of the National Council of Canadian Muslims, I get to speak to so many diverse Muslim communities across Canada. And I think that's an important point to emphasize, that there's a diversity of perspectives. I'm sure some people wake up in the morning and are not worried, and some people wake up and are very concerned. But the reality, that cold, hard reality that we have to look at, bear in the face, is that Canada has had more attacks that have killed members of the Canadian Muslim community than any other country in the last 5 years. We had the attack on the London family in 2021 in June, but we also had the killing of Mohammed Zavis at the IMO Mosque on September 20th, 2020, or September 12th, 2020, at the IMO Mosque. This is unacceptable. It has to end, and we need to see action.
So this bill named, of course, for the Afzal family as we approach the 1-year anniversary of that attack. What does this mean, Saboor, to the family?
Well, first of all, they would really like to thank everyone who has been part of that, NDP for taking a lead role on this, NCCM, and various community organizations that have come forward in enabling this. So it means a lot to them in the fact that people are moving forward and actually taking action. And secondly, it's wonderful to see how it has united people and brought people together for a very, very important cause. They are obviously devastated, and what they've been through has been horrible, and they don't want to see anyone else go through this. And there have been several examples of this, unfortunately, from the Quebec City shootings to what happened to Mohammed Afzal and what happened to them. And this should not happen again in society, free society like Canada, and it must end. So this bill is a wonderful step towards that.
So interesting to me, Saboor, you brought up unification within the Muslim community through these problems. But there's also a huge problem with division in Canada at this point. Mustafa, I wonder, when you look at the so-called freedom occupation happening in Ottawa the last few weeks, are you concerned about a rise in hate in this country?
Well, I mean, I think the reality is that, of course, we all have to be concerned about the forces of division that are driving us apart. But I think Saboor is right that what's been brought forward today by Leader Andrea Horwath today into Queen's Park is a moment to bring us together. We've seen all of our political parties pledge action, and I expect to see that kind of action translate. And of course, for the passage of the bill, we've had Leader Stephen Del from the Liberal Party, Leader Mike Schreiner commit very hard to passing this. We've seen the Ford government commit in principle to the principles of the Act. And we've seen members of the Canadian Muslim community drive forward to ask for real action, for real change. And the reality is that there can be people like Pat King, there can be people like Tom Figgin, who have tried to organize and foment division in our midst. But the reality is that I look to the stars, I look to those around us, I look to the future, and the future is together.
So when we think about support, Ms. Horwath, it's still unclear whether the PCs will support this bill. What's your message to the Doug Ford government about the urgency about this bill?
I think it's pretty clear, and it's what Mustafa has just identified. The government did say, the Premier did say that he was prepared to help and to do anything that's needed to stop this kind of thing from happening, and so we just want him to follow up with action. As the as the community said loudly and clearly, it's important that we express our outrage, that we express our collective mourning when these events occur. It's important that we that we talk about the fear and the trauma that these kinds of things create within the Muslim community. But all of that talk needs to be followed up with action to make change happen. And so I'm just asking Doug Ford, we really have an opportunity now. This is the final session of this sitting of this government, frankly, and wouldn't it be extremely, I think, important, and wouldn't it be a great signal that this government is going to ensure that this bill passes before the legislature dissolves? I would invite him to be that big person, that big leader that's prepared to to make this happen with the rest of the leaders. And I also want to express my gratitude to Mike Schreiner and to Stephen Del Duca, the Green Party leader and the Liberal leader, who have already made that commitment. And I would just ask Doug Ford to rise to this occasion and do the same.
So first reading today, still a few more steps ahead. Saboor, there is no one-size-fits-all answer to an issue like this. But in your opinion, why is legislative action needed to combat Islamophobia?
Well, I think it's very important because many other approaches have been tried. We have tried as a community, as a Muslim community, to try different educational efforts and outreach, and those efforts need to continue. But we collectively, as Canadians, need to make a stand and say, this is something wrong, this is not part of who we are, and we will not accept it. We will not accept it against Muslims, against Jews, against any other minority group, and no one should have to suffer for something that is not their fault. And everybody has a choice. It's written in our Constitution. And I think this is exactly what is needed to take it to the next level.
A very important conversation. We'll have to leave it there for today, but we so appreciate your time tonight, to all three of you, Ontario's NDP Leader Andrea Horwath, Saboor Khan, and Mustafa Farooq. Thank you very much.